much, Mutu, and thank you for inviting us for this webinar. My name is Markéta Gladyshev. I'm a business consultant for market development team of EUSPA, which is European Union Agency for the Space Program. And I'm here today also with my colleague Veronika Strnadová, and we will give you 20 minutes long presentation about Earth observation for sustainable forests. So let me just briefly introduce the topics that we would like to address today. So as some of you might not know EUSPA, I will shortly introduce the agency. Then Veronika will talk about Copernicus program and Sentinels and Copernicus Land Monitoring Service. Then key e-observation forest applications. We will briefly touch the regulation on deforestation and forest degradation, free supply chains. And also at the end, I would like to introduce EUSPA funding tools that stimulates development of application of satellite data, and give you examples of funded Horizon Europe projects. So first of all, EUSPA is European Union Agency for the Space Program, and the agency is providing European satellite navigation services, but is also responsible for market development of both satellite navigation and Copernicus data in different segments. So the agency is promoting the commercialization of Galileo, EGNOS, and Copernicus, which is Earth observation program. The agency is also coordinating the EU's forthcoming GovSatcom program, which is satellite communication for governments, and is responsible for security accreditation of all the space components. The headquarters is in Prague, and the agency has more than 250 people from 22 nationalities. And now I would like to give floor to Veronika to go in a detail about Copernicus and its application for forestry.
Thank you, Markéta. So now we are coming to the part of the presentation where I will describe the EU space program, the key Earth observation data, services, and applications that are most relevant for forestry applications. So first, the EU space program is called Copernicus. Important to know that it is still the most ambitious Earth observation program to date. It consists of 7 satellite systems, which provide systematic monitoring of the land, water, sea, ocean, and atmosphere. These satellites provide continuous, accurate, and timely information to improve the management of the environment, mitigate the effects of climate change, and ensure civil security. It's important to understand that Copernicus is a complex ecosystem that offers satellite image data as well as value-added information services that are combining both satellite and in situ, that means non-space data. These services fall basically into 6 main categories: land management, marine environment, atmosphere, emergency response, security, and climate change. Speaking about the forest monitoring, the land monitoring services are the most relevant. We can go to another slide. So as mentioned, there are 7 different satellite systems. However, for forest monitoring and forestry applications, Sentinel-1 and 2 play the key role. In this slide, we describe first the role of Sentinel-1. Sentinel-1 was launched in 2014 and acquires C-band radar data. That means the data are acquired at the longer wavelengths beyond the optical and thermal regions of the electromagnetic spectrum. Here you can see the typical salt and pepper radar data looks like. And as you can see, like these data can be so useful for visual interpretation. However, we can derive useful parameters regarding the surface physical property using these radar data. We can use Sentinel-1 data to detect deforestation, forest disturbance, as well as conduct basic forest type classification and biomass estimation. What is important to emphasize that non-like optical data, radar data such as Sentinel-1 provide the all-weather and day and night images. So we can move to another slide. Another satellite that acquires data with high importance for forest monitoring is Sentinel-2. First Sentinel-2 was launched in 2015, and it's designed to deliver high-resolution multispectral images for land services. This optical system acquires multiple bands over visible, near-infrared, and shortwave infrared regions of the electromagnetic spectrum. However, what is important to mention is that Sentinel-2 sensor was designed to monitor vegetation status, and thus the multispectral bands are positioned at wavelengths allowing monitoring photosynthetic pigments, water content, as well as other structural parameters such as leaf area index. Sentinel-2 has then a strong capability to map and monitor biophysical property, to detect deforestation, to monitor forest health and phenology status, and conduct detailed forest type classification and biomass estimation. So we can move to another slide. In this slide, we will introduce the Copernicus land monitoring services, more specifically the high resolution layers, which are the most relevant for forest monitoring. This service provides pan-European layers on such parameters as land forest cover and forest type. If we look closer, we can see that there are multi-temporal information layers providing information on dominant leaf type and tree cover density, and also provide products on change detection. In addition to the information forest type, broadleaf and coniferous cover density high resolution layers are also made available. And all these layers are provided at 20-meter resolution until 2015, but since 2018, the spatial resolution improved and are provided with 10-meter resolution. So we can move to another slide. We are coming now to application demonstrations. So clearly, with diverse Earth observation data, which are provided by ESA, NASA, or other space agencies, these data can support development of many innovative applications, for instance, for monitoring biomass and carbon stocks. Beside this, we can also use Earth observation data to support forest inventorying, monitoring forest health and biodiversity, as well as monitoring risks such as forest fires or illegal forest cutting activities. Earth observation also can play a key role for smart forest management, such as forest certification, while helping with labeling sustainable forest management and wood production. We can move to another slide. In this slide, actually, you see an example of a global product. More specifically, we speak about global biomass product. It's the final product of the ESA climate initiative, more specifically of the biomass project. And the map is based on radar data, specifically Sentinel-1 and ALOS Pulsar. ALOS is a radar agency. By combining these multiple satellite observations, annual global maps of the above ground live biomass with a spatial resolution 1 hectare have been produced. Moreover, the biomass project has recently also started a new phase, aiming or progressing towards tracking and quantifying changes over time. Just giving you one example how this product can be utilized. For instance, like researchers use the biomass maps to estimate local carbon losses caused by deforestation. You can move to another application. We are coming now to another application allowing detection of illegal logging. The illegal logging detection and prediction platform allows for detecting such illegal activities in tropical mixed forests and also anticipates possible future environmental crimes. How it works. Through the analysis of patterns such as settlement development or road construction, the platform can predict illegal logging activities and provide also near real-time alerts. Final risks for illegal loggings is derived based on several topographic, weather, vegetation, and economic parameters. And these are being processed by a machine learning, which is capable of processing large amount of data, including training data sets. Additionally, also this platform provides biomass estimation, which, as mentioned, can be further used for the conservation or monetization of carbon stocks and changes in forest systems. And then we can move to another slide. And another example of the application is forest health monitoring. So there is a operational platform called My Sustainable Forest that provides commercial services for forest management. The platform utilizes, again, diverse observation data, including Sentinel-1 and Sentinel-2. And the service provides updated information on the status and condition of predefined forest properties, namely forest extension, stand delineation, forest infrastructure, main forest types, stand variables such as dominant height, stand age, and stand density, forest disturbance, and topography. So you see it's a very complex approach. And this service, as I said, it's commercial and serves forest stakeholders, helping them with decision-making process and forest operations. So I think we can move now to another part, which is devoted to regulation on deforestation. Marketa will present that.
Yeah, thank you, Veronica. Before we move on, we wanted to ask a question about how you are familiar with Earth observation data and its usage for forestry. So you might see the question in the poll. Unfortunately, I cannot. I'm presenting, so I cannot see. So we can have a look on the results later. And now let me just briefly speak about the regulation and also about the EU Forest Observatory. So the aim of the regulation on deforestation and forest degradation-free supply chains is to minimize the EU's contribution to deforestation and forest degradation worldwide. Therefore, the aim is to reduce global deforestation as well as greenhouse gas emissions and biodiversity loss. And there are specific aims of this regulation. So first of all, to minimize risks that products from supply chains associated with deforestation are placed on the EU market or exported from it. And also to increase European Union demand for a trade in legal and deforestation-free commodities and products. Just briefly, here you can see main elements of the regulation. So the mandatory due diligence is required for operators that place the relevant products on the EU market or export them from the EU. And also only products that are both deforestation free and legal would be allowed on exported from the EU market. This obligation is applicable to operators and non-SME traders. And what I would like to also mention is that it applies to commodities including palm oil, soy, wood, cattle, cocoa, coffee, rubber, and some derived products of these commodities. As a part of its fight against deforestation, and the EU intends to create a forest observatory that will focus on deforestation, forest degradation, and also changes in the world's forest cover. And the role of this observatory will be in the enforcement of the published, but in the published regulation. And now I'll just check how much time we still have time, and which is good. I would like to move to EUSPA funding tools that stimulates the application development of satellite data, and also give you examples of Horizon Europe funded projects. So EUSPA has several tools to stimulate the innovation. First of all, I would like to mention Cassini and entrepreneurship tools. Cassini is the European Union initiative focusing on space entrepreneurship. And EUSPAS manages several activities under this, stimulating innovation and entrepreneurship. I will give you more details on the next slide. Then second pillar, Horizon Europe. So this Horizon Europe tool is focusing on stimulation of application development. While fundamental elements, that is the third pillar, is foster development of mostly hardware, meaning receivers, antennas, and chipsets. And finally, adoption grants. They are focusing mainly on aviation, and it foster EGNOS operational implementation for civil aviation. And I mentioned the Cassini program, which is support for startups from European Commission, and it provides different tools for entrepreneurs, companies, startups. First of all, focusing on developing the solution. So EUSPA organizes Cassini hackathons, also Cassini My EU Space, which is a competition that stimulates application of space data in different segments. Then recently launched Cassini Business Accelerator. Additionally, EUSPA built a network of investors and VCs, and also institutions such as European Investment Fund or European Investment Bank to support the startups that develop the solution with further growth. And EUSPA has also technical and business experts to mentor the startups, and also launch EUSPA Space Academy, which is a free tool for anyone who wants to learn more about space data, but also other aspects of the business, including commercialization part. And finally, EUSPA organizes different networking events where we're helping companies, innovators, and startups to connect with investors, corporates, or other companies. And here you can see two examples of Horizon Europe projects funded by EUSPA. First one, SWIFT. You can see also the link to the website, so you can have a look. It's a project ongoing which will provide forest managers with sensing tools using machine learning models. And it will offer a health monitoring service using Copernicus satellite imagery to detect and map the various forest risks. And the second one, Birdwatch. It's a project or a service based on Copernicus, focusing or aiming to improve the habitat sustainability of farmland birds via satellite-enabled monitoring. So it will enable monitoring of farmland habitat sustainability, Of course, again, using Earth observation data and features. And in the last slide, I would like to just summarize main takeaways before we move to the questions. So main takeaways of the presentation. So the EU's climate objectives provide for sure an opportunity for the Earth observation industry to showcase its capacities and help the European Union deliver on its policy objectives. And Copernicus data and services provide important information on one side about climate change, but also focusing on the needs for environment protection and monitoring on the other side. Finally, there are new IT capabilities like cloud computing and artificial intelligence that we mentioned previously that enable large scales and dense time series analysis of the Copernicus data. So this will play a significant role in the future. And also future Copernicus missions will unlock new applications for forest monitoring and management.
Today afternoon. My name is Jakub. I'm a co-founder and the CEO of Orbify, a data platform for verifying natural assets. And what I wanted to present to you briefly today is a result of our market study, you can call it this way, result of multiple conversations we had with multiple specialists from Earth observation domain, multiple specialists from forest monitoring domain, and also discussions to multiple companies, representatives of companies who are interested in forest monitoring and who are concerned about the impact of EUDR on their business. So I'm not trying to sell you anything. Rather, I would like to walk you through what factors you should consider when defining your own natural assets monitoring stack. If you have any questions, well, please write them in the chat, and I hope that Mutu will be able to bring them to me while I'm presenting. So I would like to go quickly with you through those three aspects. The first is the purpose. Why are you monitoring the forest or any sort of natural assets? And based on this, based on the goal, you can establish what indicators will be relevant for your purpose. And then finally, you can define in what way you can monitor, you can follow those indicators so that it brings you the most value. So without further ado, the use cases. Obviously, elephant in the room, one of the main reasons why we are here, EUDR compliance, right? And we've seen a couple of questions in the chat already. Hey, is it enough just to show a parcel that is totally deforested between the cutoff date? This is one of the things that we may need to prove to be compliant with EUDR. But besides EUDR, there is a couple of other reasons, like environmental social responsibility, like SDG, like reducing emissions due deforestation and degradation of forests and ARR and nature-based solutions. So all of those are bringing different needs to the table. It can be about optimizing operational management. It can be about development assessment, initial assessment of a project area. It can be about evaluation of certain reserve. And this will shape probably what indicators we are interested in, because from indicators from data such as forest cover, above ground biomass, and et cetera, we can build solutions for nature-based companies for verifying supply chain sustainability, or for the sake of investment and insurance decisions, because this will be about project due diligence. It will be about measuring, reporting, and verifications. It will be about risk assessment, and each one of those is calling for certain metrics to be assessed. I already mentioned those metrics, so quickly let's go through those. So forest cover, obviously, this is the most important thing. Whatever you are doing in the area of forest, whether you are preventing deforestation or preventing deforestation, or working on reforestation of certain area, whether you are verifying that you are compliant with EUDR, you will want to see whether certain area is covered with forest, maybe is not covered with forest, and then depending on your needs, you may need to remember about definition that not every group of trees is a forest, depending on cadence that you are doing. If you're optimizing your operations, if you are an NBS company, then maybe you need more of a shorter cadence. If you are just reporting to authorities, your investors, then maybe longer cadence will be sufficient. Based on those factors, you will be deciding whether, for example, some of the tools that Marketa and Veronika mentioned will be sufficient for you, whether public data is sufficient, or maybe your reserve is in like this one in southern Ecuador, very hilly, very clouded area where Sentinel-2 is really difficult to obtain. Sentinel-2 data are really difficult to obtain due to cloudiness of the region. Sentinel-1 in hilly region, not super reliable as well. So in this case, commercial data may be necessary. And the parameters you will be looking for, probably this is forest gain, forest loss, forest area size. So how many hectares here are deforested, reforested, maintained, lost, and forest to land ratio. Similarly, in the case of above ground biomass, this is information that will be relevant for carbon stock verification or assessment of carbon sequestration in a certain area. Again, we've been seeing that from EUSPA, you can obtain climate change initiative data, and I super appreciate this. At the same time, you may want to defer to in-situ measurements, ground truth data, or maybe you will want to do some machine learning-based regression to have even more accurate, even more fine-grained when it comes to temporal resolution data. You will be measuring things like total above ground biomass amount, like spatial distribution, where we are seeing more taller trees, trees that have more organic carbon inside, and where we are seeing maybe lower concentration of the above ground biomass. This information will be also very important to us when we are verifying the impact of natural disasters. Let's say that there was a wildfire in a reserve, and we want to measure how much organic carbon has been emitted to the atmosphere. Here, in this case, we will be comparing the size of the burned out area with the biomass that was located over there. And this is actually one of the use cases on which we've been working with one of our customers who is maintaining forest reserves in Africa in quite dry region, that after wildfires they would like to estimate the impact on the above ground biomass that they are storing in their reserves. Tree canopy height. This is another parameter that may be relevant, not only as a way of increasing the precision of biomass estimation, but also in general to better verify and monitor an NBS project. And in this case, some of our customers are very much interested in spot measurements in order to not only be able to say, okay, the median canopy height is this or that, but actually in our forest reserves, there are trees that are up to 70 meters tall. Also, an interesting parameter might be for some of us, for some of our customers, is fluctuation over time. So how the trees are growing, how this is changing over multiple years. And with this information, we can also better assess the impact of natural disasters on an ecosystem. Vegetation health. This is super important parameter for those of our companies who are from the NBS space, who would like to ensure that the forest that they are cultivating is not being endangered by pests, by diseases, right? So over there they are observing fluctuations of NDVI, EVI, and DMI. If those acronyms don't tell you much, let's definitely chat after the call, or just ask in the chat. The problem with NDVI is that it is very susceptible for seasonality effects, right? So in the dry season, if there is not enough water, the NDVI will go down. So this is why often we are recommending using SVI, Standardized Vegetation Index, which enables us to compare, okay, this year it is going down, but it's going down every year. So actually the situation is in the norm. You don't need to be concerned about anything. Risk assessment, and this is a parameter that is very much important when you are making a decision, as for example an investment company. Oh, I want to invest in this forest, I want to save forest in this area. This is actually a screenshot from a report that we generated for one of our customers who was asking exactly that question. There is a forest reserve somewhere in, I think it was in Brazil, and I'm interested in understanding whether this is money well spent, right? Whether this forest really is endangered, or maybe it will survive on its own, and I should put my money behind another reserve that may be closer to some sources of threats. Threats can have double origin. This can be natural threats like low humidity, low soil moisture, landslides as well, wildfires, of course, but also this can be anthropogenic threats. This can be the transport infrastructure that we are seeing here developing. This can be agriculture, so new fields appearing and trees need to be cut to make space for humans to plant food. So risk assessment will guide some of our decisions when it comes to NBS, REDD, but also, and here we are going to one of the questions from the chat. One of the elements of becoming compliant with EUDR is providing risk assessment for your site. So if there is forest that is, for example, maintained, then you may need to provide risk assessment. Okay, how likely it is that something bad, something unexpected or unwelcome will happen to the forest. Maybe it's a forest in the vicinity, right? You're planting cocoa, but then there is forest close to you, and how your business will impact forest over there. So to answer the question, it's not only to just show my plantation is where there was no forest, but it's also about assessing the environment in your vicinity, in your neighborhood. And well, So far, all of those indicators could be assessed via remote sensing Earth observation means, and probably this is what brings all of us to this webinar, right? That we are aware that satellites, drones, planes provide those amazing capabilities of assessing forest reserves. But then sometimes when we are generating project definition documents, when we are evaluating an investment, we want to be extra certain about how we estimated the amount of biomass in a reserve, or whether we are properly assessing the forest boundaries. And in these cases, ground truthing becomes really handy. It's expensive, but it gives you this level of certainty. So when you're defining your product stack, you also should take it into consideration whether we want to include ground truthing in situ measurements into our system. If so, in what capacity do we want to make computations based on those two? What sort of data will we include? Will be this only data measurements, how thick is tree trunk, or maybe it will be photo, video documentation. Maybe we'll be taking pictures of the leaves on the trees to better estimate what is the area covered with leaves, how much carbon is stored over there, etc. This concludes the list of all the elements, right? So I don't have much time, and I'm sorry if it was really quick, like a sprint through all of those things you need to take into consideration when defining what your nature assets stack should look like. But I've got something for you if you are overwhelmed a little bit, because instead of building this with some tools that are available for just one purpose, single purpose tools, you can use tools that combine all of this in one place, that abstract you, that shield you from this complexity, that maybe using machine learning, maybe using some other AI methods, decide in case of your reserve, in case of the purpose you're working on, actually these indicators, these methods of measuring, establishing those indicators will be the best for you. And this is what brings me to my next screen, which is Orbify, an app that we created for the webinar. And here, let me quickly upload a KML file. This is Terra do Meio. Okay, let me change the name, Terra do Meio. And over here, our system will analyze what information can be assessed for this reserve, what information can be displayed for this reserve. So for the period of between 1st of January 2021 and 28th of February 2023, what we are seeing, seeing 13,000 hectares of area that is covered with forest in 90%. When it comes to maintained forest area, this is almost 12,000 hectares where we are seeing forest loss, forest gain. I think I don't need to read all these parameters to you. What we are seeing right now is an up-to-date satellite image showing how the reserve looks right now. And let's see where the forest was lost. So with the colors, we can see now maintained, lost, and gained forest areas. So there were some small changes, but nothing more systemic. Let's see how the situation with that biomass is looking like. This is showing us that the forest is pretty dense all over the reserve. There are only certain areas that are showing some signs of issues with biomass concentration. And also here we can observe how different vegetation health indexes are looking like, how the temperature is fluctuating. This is, as you can guess, from temperature and humidity. This is a reserve in Brazil. So this is what we meant by abstracting you from all the complexity. If you are more of a curious user, you can decide what parameters you want to track, overriding suggestions that are made for you, but you can simply rely on the results that we produced for you. So that brings me to the end of my presentation, but I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Mutu, for the invite, and to Geo Awesomeness as well for having me today. So my name is Stefano Savi. As mentioned, I'm the director of the Global Platform for Sustainable Natural Rubber. GPSNR is a multi-stakeholder initiative that was set up about 4 years ago. We have representation from all players in the natural rubber value chain, from the smallholders to the end users, including the processors and traders and the manufacturers of natural rubber and natural rubber products. We also have civil society organizations as part of the stakeholders that are included in the GPSNR governance. Overall, GPSNR has now more than 200, almost 250 members now that are representing about 55% of the global natural rubber volume. And we work by ensuring the members set commitments that are aligned with our policy framework, which is a multi-stakeholder agreed commitment document on what sustainable natural rubber actually means, what's the definition of that, based on the opinion and thoughts of our members. Yeah, and we also have programs for social, economic, and environmental actions that are linked to especially capacity building, but also assurance for what the companies are doing that we're currently initiating and developing. So when it comes to the EUDR, this is something that is certainly very important for the industry, and that will be, we think, a game changer in the way that companies are looking at compliance, yeah, when we talk about sustainability in the natural rubber value chain. What we know as of today of this EUDR, the European Union Deforestation Regulation, is that natural rubber will now be included. This is the outcome of the negotiation that led to the latest draft, and that the timeline is pretty short. So when we speak today, we're probably now at 16 months actually from the entry into force of the regulation. There's an important information about the cutoff date for deforestation, which is the 31st of December 2020 in the current draft, and this is quite aligned, I would say, with what GPSNR had set up already 4 years ago by deciding on a cutoff date of April 2019 for our members when we talk about deforestation. Now, the definition of deforestation and how this is going to be implemented at the EU level is still a bit unclear. It will depend on the guidance that will be produced by the EU, that we hope is going to be produced as soon as possible, so that we can ensure that companies can understand how to comply with the requirements of the regulation. What we know today is that there will be a requirement for actually an understanding of the geo-coordinates for all farm locations with the plot of lands, yeah? This for farms that are going to be below 4 hectares, and the need for having full polygons details for farms that are above 4 hectares. So when we talk about natural rubber, we are looking at an industry that is 85% dependent on smallholders production. where most of smallholders have 1 to 2 hectares of land on average, and we're talking about 6 million smallholders. So these requirements on traceability and on geolocations will really be quite challenging, yeah, for the industry to look into, yeah. And I think we need to move very fast and ensure that on one end the industry has the best tools and the best intentions to move forward towards complying with the regulation, but on the other end, that the regulators will set up an environment that will be leading to suitable conditions for the businesses to be able to do this within the timelines that are quite stringent. Yeah. So in terms of GPSNR and our engagement, we covered the aspect of the regulation within the discussions of the multi-stakeholder group since the beginning, yeah. And from the beginning, we have taken a position on this, which is that we align with the intent of the regulation. Of course, now the regulation is out, so legality is part of the commitments, of course, of all our companies. So we will need to comply with what the request is, and the companies will need to comply with what the requests are from the regulator. But we really hope that we can look into this in a way that we can promote equity for smallholders and avoid unintended exclusion of smallholders from the value chain. One of the issues that we see coming from the regulation is that there might be a push for companies to divert materials that are more easily traceable. So coming, for example, from large-scale plantation towards the EU, and getting then, therefore, material that is coming from smallholders to potentially go to other markets that do not have the same regulatory requirements. This would be a challenge, and we need to ensure that that's not going to be the case. So we hope that we can look into the guidance that is going to come up for from the EU for somehow a more risk-based approach and a way to look at this on a jurisdictional traceability level, yeah, for a practical and effective approach. Although it seems now that the direction is going towards clearly needing a plot of lands and the coordinates for each of the production points, but we still hope that there's going to be a way to ensure that this is going to be made easier for smallholders. And we do think that capacity building to promote sustainable practices is essential, together with this need for verification and regulation. So here I think that within the pillars of the Green Deal in the EU, traceability is one of the items that is being covered, but in especially the forest partnerships and the way to look at the collaboration with the production governments, there's a lot of opportunity for engagement in a way that we can ensure that smallholders are enabled to comply with the requirements of the regulation. Of course, GPSNR on this doesn't plan to stay idle. We have already started work to enable our members to help our members in compliance with the regulation. And for this, we already completed an assessment with current members on their preparedness and understanding of what is the level of traceability and geolocalization that is currently present in different regions. And we're seeing that we have some regions where this is possibly easier than others when we look at the production. And this is very much depending on how the value chain is designed. So we have certain regions where the value chain is a bit simpler. There are less, let's say, handshakes and passages and intermediaries between the initial products and the processors, and then the processors and the downstream part of the value chain. But we also have parts of the supply chain where we have up to 14 exchanges, and where this will be indeed a challenge to implement. We are also looking at strategizing on what can be done to improve the situation and how we can share costs among members of the tools that will be required to comply with the regulation and to access the data that is necessary for the due diligence process that is required by the regulation, as well as setting up a due diligence process within GPSNR that is indeed aligned with the requirements of the EU. Last but not least, we will look at implementing methods for improving traceability, and we will do that while keeping a holistic approach on sustainability, because we do think that while budgets are always restrained and have a cap, we need to ensure that the regulation does not lead into everything and all the budgets for companies on sustainability going towards verification and due diligence, but the necessary work on capacity building and on support of better practices at the ground level with producers will be continued. So I'll stop there, and I'll thank you for your time, and I'm looking forward to respond to any of your questions.